In my school growing up, children would say, "Beware the Ides of March," when March 15th rolled around. Kids may not have remembered where to find Italy on a map, but they knew that Julius Caesar had been betrayed and killed on that fateful day. Julius Caesar expanded the Roman Republic all the way to France, defeating several groups of Gallic tribes who would later destroy Roman generals once he was gone. He helped the poor of Rome, creating a tradition that the leading Roman provided bread and circuses to those less fortunate. Most importantly, he began the process of tearing down the Roman Republic when he named himself dictator for life. And he was only 56. He could have lived for another 20 years to remold Rome in his image. What might Rome have looked like if he had survived? If Augustus, the first true Roman emperor, had not had the chance to freely shape his empire? This is our what-if question today. On March 15th, 44 BCE, Julius Caesar is preparing to go to the Senate. He dresses properly, while considering what he will say in one of his final sessions before leaving on his new campaign to conquer the Parthians. His wife, Calpurnia, tells him she had bloody dreams of his death and begs her husband to stay home. She claims she saw him spouting blood as if from a fountain, the citizens of Rome bathing in it. She swears he will die if he leaves. Caesar is almost swayed, but his fellow senator Decius Brutus appears at his house and urges him to go to the Senate, asking if he is really so weak as to trust the words of a woman. Caesar is swayed by this argument. He walks into the Senate distractedly and fails to notice the daggers hidden under the other senators' robes until it is too late. He was stabbed 23 times by a group of senators trying to protect the Republic, including the generals Cassius and Brutus, whose lives he had spared after the Roman Civil War. Imagine if instead on that day, Caesar is convinced by Decius to approach the Senate, but he also trusts his wife's warnings. He puts on chainmail under his cloak and brings bodyguards. It is, after all, his last day in Rome before his campaign. As he stands in the Senate House, Cassius, an old enemy Caesar pardoned after winning the civil war against Pompey in 48 BCE, approaches as if to ask a question. As Caesar casually leans in to hear the petition, Cassius pulls out a dagger and strikes at Caesar's stomach. But the chainmail wards off the blow. Before Cassius can strike again or his fellow conspirators can act, Caesar's bodyguards subdue him. Caesar looks into the eyes of a man he believed he had won over by sparing his life. "How could you?" Caesar softly asks. Cassius growls in response, "For the Republic." Caesar sighs and waves his hand. Cassius is dragged away. The rest of the senators in the room stare in shock as Mark Antony, one of Caesar's most competent generals and oldest friend, bursts in yelling, "Caesar!" Seeing his best friend still standing, Antony offers him a relieved smile. Caesar orders every senator, even tangentially involved in the plot, to be tried in public and then executed. He uses the failed assassination attempt as an excuse to purge the Senate of enemies, including some he believes may have been innocent, but who he calculates would fight to restore the Republic. Within a week, 80 of the most prestigious senators are dead. Free of opposition, Caesar seizes full control of Rome. He watches mournfully as Brutus is killed, shaking his head at the loss of the young man. But he had spared Brutus once and was betrayed. He cannot make the same mistake twice. Caesar stands before his supporters in Rome and announces he must take charge if Rome is to survive. The Senate is allowed to exist, but is reduced to a rubber stamp for his decrees. Those senators still alive remain silent out of fear. A few weeks later, Caesar announces it is time to leave for his campaign to Parthia. In 53 BCE, Crassus, the third member of Caesar's triumvirate, was killed by the Parthians, who poured molten gold down his throat. A legionary eagle was lost, which was a crippling blow to Roman honor. Caesar declares it is time to avenge his old ally's death, time to recover Roman pride. He and Mark Antony head out on campaign together. Before leaving, Caesar calls his great-nephew Octavian to Rome from Greece. He entrusts Octavian with maintaining order and encourages him to use this opportunity to improve his diplomatic skills. Caesar also quietly arranges for Caesarion, his son by Cleopatra, to receive the finest Roman education. Calpurnia has given him no children, and Caesar has begun to believe Caesarion may be the only son he will ever have. While publicly, Caesar maintains that he is attacking Parthia for killing Crassus, he has a secret underlying motive: their support for Pompey in the civil war. The first stop in this campaign is in Dacia, to take revenge on King Burebista, another former ally of Pompey. Burebista rules a newly united kingdom of tribes that includes several Greek city-states on the Black Sea. Caesar divides the Dacians by making overtures to the Greek cities, creating an excellent landing point for his campaign. He convinces nearby tribes to abandon Burebista, significantly weakening his armies. Burebista responds by retreating into the mountains and resorting to guerrilla warfare, which over the months starts to whittle down Caesar's troops. However, Caesar has guides from the local tribesmen, and eventually, with their help, he traps and defeats Burebista's forces in an open battle. The remaining Dacians retreat into their capital, Sarmizegetusa, which was extremely well defended, located on a massive hill and protected by 6 forts. Caesar's forces have to endure brutal fighting, but Caesar has men to spare, and within a month, the city falls. Burebista is captured as he tries to flee. Caesar drags the king in chains through the streets of Sarmizegetusa, and the sight convinces the remaining fighting Dacians to surrender. Elated at the victory, Caesar turns Dacia into a new province. However, Caesar has spent more time and men in Dacia than expected, and so he is out of time to attempt to invade Parthia. Caesar returns to Rome for the winter to celebrate his victorious campaign, leaving Mark Antony with a small army to maintain peace in the new province of Dacia. In Rome, Caesar throws a massive triumph, where he parades Burebista through the streets, followed by carts of riches. He takes the title Dacicus to honor his victory. While trapped in Rome for the winter, Caesar looks to the task of governance. He embarks on several ambitious projects. He orders the swamps drained to combat malaria, and constructs a grand library inspired by the Library of Alexandria in honor of his hero Alexander the Great. He builds a new temple dedicated to the goddess Victoria, funded by his Dacian campaign, and publicly announces that this is in preparation for his great victory in Parthia. He establishes colonies across Italy and Greece for retired soldiers, simultaneously Romanizing the areas. These colonies ensure Greece becomes a fully loyal Roman province. Caesar's public works and land redistribution win him the loyalty of the common Roman people. In the spring, Caesar resumes his journey to Parthia to fight King Orodes II, avenge Crassus, and recover the lost legionary eagle. He starts his march through Armenia, a Roman ally. However, the Parthians, anticipating this move, secretly station garrisons throughout Armenia to delay the Romans. Caesar is bogged down for months in Armenia. This gives the Parthian prince Pacorus I the opportunity to launch an invasion of the Roman province of Syria. When he hears of the attack, he turns around and heads back to Roman territory, but he takes heavy losses throughout the journey, plagued by Parthian guerrilla attacks. News of Rome's struggles encourages unrest across the empire. The Dacians, Germanic and Iberian tribesmen all take the chance to revolt. Mark Antony is able to stop the Dacian revolt, but he is mortally wounded in the campaign. Julius Caesar is heartbroken at the news, but he has no time to mourn. He spends the next few years racing across the empire, putting out revolts left and right. Finally, after years of vicious fighting, the empire is peaceful enough that Caesar returns to Rome, only to face another devastating blow. Caesarion, his only son, is dead. Octavian claims the boy has been ill for years. but rumors suggest Octavian orchestrated his death to secure his position as Caesar's heir. Caesar is furious, but realizes Octavian is now his only successor. Days after settling into his palace in Rome, Caesar dies unexpectedly, much to the puzzlement of his doctors. His death is mourned across the empire, most publicly by Octavian, who wastes no time seizing power as Caesar's heir. The suspicion that Octavian had poisoned Caesar to protect his place in the will is never proven. Octavian paints his uncle as a legend, claiming to follow in his footsteps. Inspired by watching the years of revolts, he adopts a policy of maintaining the empire's borders rather than pursuing new conquests, as his reign is primarily spent doing political damage control, artfully manipulating the remaining senators to admit that an empire led by his family is the future. Rome is prosperous under Octavian. When he dies years later, he leaves behind a Roman state prepared to accept his stepson Tiberius as emperor. There are countless versions of what could have happened if Caesar had lived. Some believe he would have conquered Germania and Britannia, or even reached India. Others speculate he might have died in Dacia, or succumbed to an epileptic seizure before history had drastically changed. This path through history is but one possibility. Caesar was one of Rome's greatest military leaders, and his choice to cross the Rubicon, to enter Rome with an army, to fight a civil war instead of relinquishing power to the Senate, is what made the Roman Empire that we remember a reality. Thanks for watching, and remember, as always, to like and subscribe.